from God. And we want to give as much time as possible to hear God speaking through Danny tonight. All right, hey, that's a good microphone. All right, okay. Hey, it's always a joy to hear everybody getting a chance to speak with everybody, and hope they're having a good time, good worship. We're looking forward to hearing the Word of God tonight through a man, an extremely humble person who has got quite a story, he's been through a lot of tests, and because of all the tests he's been through, he's got quite a testimony. And every time that I've spoken, I see sides revealed that I had no idea. I've learned something new about him every time. And, there's so much wonderful things I can't hardly wait to hear tonight. A man who has given so much of his life to serve his church and to the love of God. And I know God, he's loved. God, who has been received much love and has been forgiven much, loves much. So let's hear God love on us through Danny. All right.
That was like a super amazing introduction. All right, so tonight we are going to ask a question. I'm going to ask everybody a question, and the question is, what's your problem? Okay. My name's Danny Jones. If you don't know me, come say hi after. I'd love to meet you. I want to pray, and then we're going to get into this thing and see what happens. All right, Lord, thank you for this night. Thank you that we can come together, that we can worship you, that we can praise you, that we can do it differently every single day, that we won't get tired of your presence, because even if it looked exactly the same, we'd never have enough. So be with us, be here. In Jesus' name, amen. So getting back to my question, what is your problem? Sorry. Please don't answer that for those of you who know what your problem is. Tonight I want to talk, okay, I'm going to be honest, pretty much anytime somebody gives me a microphone, it always ends up going towards destiny and fulfilling your purpose and fulfilling your call and what are the roadblocks that get in the way. And so tonight's going to be no different. We're going to try to find out what some of the problems that we have are that are stopping us from walking in the call that God has set before us. One of the best examples is a guy who he's got kind of a bad rap because, he started okay and then he really screwed things up. And then pretty much it just got worse from there. And so that would be the first king of Israel, known as Mr. Saul. 1 Samuel 9:20 is where we're going to pick the story up. The Israelites have been complaining, hey, we don't like things the way they are, we want a king. And God says back, you're not going to like it if I give you a king. And they said, we don't care, we want a king anyway. So right here, we're at when Saul has run into Samuel the prophet. And so before you guys all got here today, I was praying over this room and I was saying, what chair is it that is going to get picked on tonight? Because all of you get very nervous. It's okay. The person who ended up sitting in the chair probably expects me to pick on them anyway. So it's very convenient that you sat in the golden chair. Yeah. So stay there. No, stand right there. Yeah, I'm just going to stay right there.
As soon as he started talking, I was like, yeah.
This is Skylar, everyone. I promise I didn't pre-pick her. I pre-picked her chair. I promise. She doesn't believe me. Okay, can you read this passage for us?
And don't worry about those donkeys that were lost 3 days ago, for they have been found. And I am here to tell you that you and your family are the focus of all Israel's hopes. Emphasis, gang.
No, but seriously.
DJV, Danny Jones.
Okay, so stay there. DJV. Wow, that's bad. So Skylar, how did that feel? Like, emotionally and making you stand there and do that?
Oh, for you to
Pick on you like this. Yeah, also in the passage. Yeah. How does it feel reading it?
It kind of gives you comfort and like points to the fact that it was for a reason, like something that you've been worried about. There's a reason why it's happening, and it may seem trivial, but it's for a greater purpose.
All right. So let me ask you, don't sit down. How would you feel if a prophet who, this question is for everybody, but I'm specifically going to make Skylar answer it. If a prophet who is known for always getting it right said to you, Skylar, you are the hope for the entire nation of New Zealand, or the entire nation of the United States, then how would you feel?
A lot of pressure.
Okay.
And like they were wrong.
And
You're
like-
like, oh no, picked the wrong one.
Okay, can you read how Saul felt about it, please?
Saul replied, but I'm only from the tribe of Benjamin, the smallest tribe in Israel. And my family is the least important of all the families of that tribe. Why are you talking like this to me?
Okay, thanks. You can sit down. Here we go, Skylar. So I don't know if God puts you in that chair because you're probably one of the few people in the room that I can mess with like that, and you'd be fine, or what. But I also know that the word that I got for the person in that chair is a lot of tonight is going to be for you in terms of greatness of your call. So, all right. I want to talk about one of Saul's problems to start with. So it says, Saul was the most handsome man in Israel, head and shoulders taller than anyone else in the land. How many of you know that's not actually a problem? Like, I want to be taller than everybody, well, not head and shoulders, but Israelites are short. So, like, it's assumed that he was probably about like 6'10", give or take, and he would, yeah, no, like somewhere between 6'5" and 6'10" is what they kind of guessed, because he was literally head and shoulders over all the 5-foot-something people. Yeah, okay. So we're on the same map. All right. So the thing, but he was also the most handsome guy, and like it's a problem for him though. There's a story that goes that this 17-year-old kid, he super tall in high school, got sick and tired of people asking him over and over these questions. So he had this business card made. In case you can't read it, or in case you've never seen it before, it says, yes, I am tall. Yes, or you're very observant for noticing. 6'8". Yes, really. No, I don't play basketball. Yes, the weather is just fine up here. I'm glad we had this conversation. It is funny. I really love that business card. But the reason I bring it up is because everybody's got a thing. Everybody's got the thing that they're ashamed to share. But if you were really honest with yourself, okay, well, you probably believe that it is a problem. But if you actually shared it with somebody you trust, with the thing that you're really insecure about, the thing that you're really afraid to share, I bet you the person you shared it with would laugh at the idea that it scares you or that it makes you uncomfortable. So tonight, I really want you to start praying about what is it that you allow to hold you back. Because every person in this room has a big call. I would bet you 2/3 of this room has a huge call, but you're sitting on it because you're afraid of something. And it may be a big thing, it may be a small thing. The reason that you're sitting on it may be absolutely legitimate. The reason that you're sitting on it may be just simply fear. So, what we're going to be working on is what's your problem. I'm going to give the example of 3 people, and I've changed their names. They're real people. I mostly changed their names. And I'm going to tell you this story about them. So the first person I want to talk to you about, we're calling Jane. So this is probably going to sound like a weird story, but that's okay. A professor that I had once, he said that I don't really remember how it started, but he said that, it was a psychology class, he was talking about women that were extraordinarily beautiful and how extraordinarily unhappy they are. And to the people who, or what's that movie that just came out? The one about she's in a rom-com. Anybody remember the name of the movie? Isn't It Romantic? There you go. I didn't watch it. But, okay. There's a scene where she's like, what is your problem? You're so beautiful. And she's like, yeah, it's not that easy. She's like, how can it not be easy? You're so perfect. And that's an easy thought that we have, right? Well, my friend Jane would be kind of one of those people. So we get very close in college, and when we met, she was modeling. She was on a bunch of the cover of a bunch of magazines. And because we became close enough that I felt like I could ask her this question honestly without being offensive, I asked her plain and simple. I said, is it difficult being beautiful? And I know that sounds like a line, but I promise it wasn't. Our friendship, it was clear. It wasn't a line. Anyway, stop laughing, please. And she was saying, she looked at me and she kind of paused and she got a really serious face because I don't know if anybody had ever asked her that before. And I didn't think that it was difficult. I mean, I don't think I'm a hideous guy, but I'm not going to go model for Abercrombie, you know? So I don't have that problem that she does. And she explained that she feels like she's always misunderstood and always misjudged because of how she looks. She feels like nobody cares the fact that she's working on her master's now. She's just a model. So sometimes the things that block us, the things that get in our way, or that we let get in our way, are things that other people would actually see as positive. So take Saul, for example. He was head and shoulders taller than everybody else, but he was always hiding. My next friend, we're calling him Mike. Sorry, I couldn't remember what I named him. Awesome guy. I swear to you that before he became a full-time missionary and had money for like protein powders and things like that, he looks like Thor. It was ridiculous. Yeah, no, seriously. Yeah, still Thor back then. Okay, and like when I say he looked like Thor, I mean like he's good-looking, like super buff dude. He's an amazing worship leader, irritatingly good voice, and yeah, I was very jealous. I don't have jealous problems. No, but he had the most incredible addiction to a lot of things, from drugs and alcohol to pornography, and it controlled the entire underside of his life. But when you looked at him, he was like great at athletics. He was an amazing musician and a great singer. He was super popular. Everybody loved the guy. Good looking, but always struggling with emptiness. He dealt with it mostly, got married, had some kids, beautiful wife, beautiful children. Calls me up, bro, I'm struggling again. And because I've been around it so much, I get it. But the other side, it's like, bro, like everything is going your way. What do you mean? Like you're changing the world. And yet you're still struggling with this. So I say that to you for two reasons. One, because I want you to know that if you're struggling with something, an identity issue, something about the way you look, something about the way you feel about yourself, it's okay. There's a lot of people that do. In fact, most people do. But at the same time, I also want you to know that dealing with those things, getting them figured out with the Lord, are the way that God is going to be able to open the door for even greater things. Let me explain to you why. You guys can all see this stand, right? Kind of. There are 3 legs. It's a tripod stand. That's how it works. Sorry, I don't want to lift it because there's like a laptop on it, which I definitely would drop. So if I took and I sawed at one of the legs until it was really weak, and then I started putting stuff on top of this stand, sooner or later, that leg is going to give, and the stand is going to collapse. So what happens is in our lives, when a part of our foundation is broken, or when a part of our foundation is weak because we think whatever lie about ourselves is true, as God starts putting more responsibility, greater favor on you, sooner or later, it's going to collapse, and the whole thing's going to come tumbling down. And so it's important to deal with it. The last person, you might know this guy. He's a worship leader. You know, I'm not going to say he, it's going to be too confusing for me. I wish that I was still exercising 6 days a week like I used to. I wish that I was still super great shape, and I wish that I always believed in myself. I wish that when I walked into a room, I never had a moment where it's like, I don't know what people think of me. But that's the reality. For me, there's still times where I can walk into a room and wonder, oh no, I wonder what they're thinking. Was that person laughing about me? Now, it doesn't happen all the time, but it's a good indication of where my spiritual or my emotional health is. Because once I start getting more paranoid about things like that, then I know that I need to work on myself, or I need to check myself. So, a good example, I have no business going to the places that I get to go to. Honestly, getting to travel to different countries and teach or speak or do worship, none of these things should be allotted to me. Because when I look at my life, I just say to myself, wow, I wish that I didn't have a long criminal history from before I gave my life to the Lord. I wish that everything was wiped away when I said, Jesus, I want you. But it's not. It's always going to be there. And these are insecurities for me. I don't know if I shared, but when I went to Western Samoa this last time, when I landed, they took my passport and they're like, okay. It's like, hey, it says here that you said you've committed some crimes. And I was like, well, yeah, I have. And they're like, but you were welcomed into the country before. I was like, yeah, I was. It's like, all right, let me get my supervisor. And so I'm sitting there thinking, there's one direct flight in and one direct flight out. And the direct flight in just left. So in other words, if I am not going to be allowed into the country, I'm going to be waiting in someone jail for 7 days. These are the things that I wish that I didn't have to carry. These are the things that when I am thinking, should I go? Lord, is this really you? The question I ask is, do I have it in me to go and sit in the jail for a week? And believe me, I don't sit there and I'm like, oh yes, for the gospel, I'll do it. I really wish. I'm more sitting there, can you guys pray for me? I'm kind of scared. Or like literally, you can check my phone records. Like when I landed in Samoa, I'm like texting people. I'm like, hey, so I'm still sitting here. It's been an hour and nobody's coming. Hey, this police officer just came by. He just asked me what's going on, and he just said that he's from the federal task force that works with Interpol. So yeah, it's terrifying for me. And it's funny because if you knew me, you would know that generally things scare me. Like I'm not going to jump off something high. I'm not going to jump into something that I don't know. There's video evidence of this that I hope you never find. Of the last time I was in Europe, I didn't want to jump off of this little thing into the cold water because I was scared. But the thing is, like, the grace and the mercy that God has given me is so much that I can't not share it with people. My life has been changed so much by just the Swedish people that have come to our partner organization, Circle Nations. And so when I think, or when I hear stories about how hard it can be sometimes to be faithful Christians, to actually believe in what the Bible says, it breaks my heart and it makes it worth the monetary expense and the fear of what it's like. When I come back to the country, these last 2 trips to Samoa was the first time that I've left the country, come back, and not been pulled out of line. So you guys walk up to the passport thing, and you scan your passport, and then it prints out a ticket, and you just walk on through. Well, mine has a big X over it when it prints out. Literally, the person that had an X on theirs was a guy standing next to me who had a turban on. And please know that I'm not trying to generalize any person with a turban and put them with terrorists. But the thing is, that's what our government does sometimes. And I got put in the same group because of choices I made 15 years ago. So, with all that being said, when I was on my state-imposed vacation, as I would call it, God came to me. That was jail, by the way. God came to me and he told me, hey, you are going to be a pastor of business people. And I'm like, what? My first question to God was, did you dial the wrong number? Because I hate business. So let me phrase that. 15 years ago, I hated business. 15 years ago, I said, Lord, I do not want to be a pastor at all. 15 years later, here we are. The second question I asked was, why me? I don't know if any of you guys have heard from the Lord or sensed something in your spirit that it's like, I want to do this. And you're sitting there like, why me? Or you're sitting there and saying, how? Because really, at the time, I was just a criminal who was going to carry a lifelong title. That's it. I mean, I didn't finish college before I got locked up. And the businesses that I had owned had failed or had closed after time. So I said, Lord, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? And the last question I asked God still is, are you crazy? I mean, I know he knows what he's doing, but I still think he's crazy sometimes. And so, as we move on, the thing that had happened to me is what happened to Saul. So the Hebrew text literally says, when he turned his shoulder to go from Samuel, God also turned for him another heart. Other translations say that God gave him a new heart. Now this isn't Ezekiel giving a heart, or taking a heart of stone and giving a heart of flesh, or Saul didn't suddenly become overcome with courage. Saul went from what historians call a husbandry mindset, which I guess is apparently like a farming mindset. I don't know, that's a strange name, maybe there's a word for it. He went from a husbandry mindset to a governing mindset. I know you guys have ever heard the story about the cashier at the grocery store who's doing super well, and the manager comes up to them and says, hey, I want you to be a manager, you're doing really well. They become a manager, and then they become the worst employee, and then they leave. The reason is, I promise there's a purpose to this, we'll come back to it. The reason is, a cashier is a specific set of skills. Transitioning over to becoming a manager takes a completely different mindset. God may have put dreams and hopes into your hearts, but he's waiting until your mindset can be shifted so it can handle that call. At my time as a criminal, there's no way I could have looked out for other people. There's no way I could have had any concept of business at all. Because, like I said, my businesses failed because I had no concept of business. God had to take years of schooling and of meeting people and of being around people who genuinely cared for each other for me to learn how I could shepherd people and how I could actually add some value to a business. So think about the thing that you have felt called to and ask yourself, genuinely, if God opened that door tomorrow, would you be prepared for it? If not, what are you going to do to change that? Samuel 10:22. I mentioned that it was not a change of heart in terms of suddenly a blast of courage because, one, I don't want you to think that when you're standing at the precipice of whether or not you should jump after what God is calling you to do, if you don't feel this rush of courage, it's okay. Because that's not the heart that we're talking about. If you're standing on the edge and you're thinking, oh Lord, I don't know if I want to do this, that's okay. We have moved forward. Saul has already been anointed as king. Now there's a big assembly. Saul was anointed king privately. Now there's a big assembly. And they assume that it was through lots. They're casting lots, picking out which of the 12 tribes the king will come from. And then they go down to the tribe of Benjamin. And then they go to the family of Saul. And then they pick Saul. And they say, Saul will be our next king. But the thing is, he was gone. So they asked, where is he? And the Lord replied, he's hiding among the baggage. Yay, new king of Israel. He's hiding among the baggage. It wasn't that somebody said, hey, new king, we need you to fight like in Black Panther, where they had to fight for the kingship. It wasn't like that. It was just, hey, we're going to put some oil on you and give you a crown and call you the king. And he ran and hid. That was the first king of Israel. So if you're feeling afraid of your call, it's okay. You're not the first person. And I don't know what's on this next slide. So my first question to you is, where are you hiding? Are you hiding in Hawaii? Are you hiding on the mainland? Are you hiding in Surfing the Nations? Are you hiding at YWAM? Are you hiding in school? Are you hiding at your job? Are you hiding? If you're not, it's okay. But those are the first questions I want to ask. The second question is, what are you hiding from? Have you identified what it is that God is calling you to do, and you're just running from it? And the last question is, why are you hiding? Is it fear? Are you waiting for something? What are you afraid of? Do you know what's on the next slide? That's good. One of my many things that slowed me down was when I was in school, I did very poorly. From elementary through high school, I was a pretty terrible student. I got maybe like C's, some B's, like maybe A's and Dan, because, yeah, it's fun. But I always thought that it was because I was stupid. My family always told me it was because I was lazy. But it wasn't until I was in college that I realized I just learned differently than people. So the whole time I'm sitting there thinking, I'm so stupid. I'm so lazy. Man, I will never accomplish anything in life. God was saying, I'm preparing you for something. So okay, this is going to be fun. Don't put your hands up until I ask the full question. Of those of you who sat down and had a conversation with me, no, actually, you know what? Raise your hand if you sat down and had like an actual conversation with me one-on-one. Don't be afraid. All right. Okay, now of those of you, keep your hands up. Put your hands down if I didn't use an analogy in that conversation. All right. Okay, now you put your hands down. So here's the thing. I realized that when a teacher would teach something, it didn't make sense to me. Until I looked at it from 15 different ways and found the word picture that made it make sense to me, or I could associate it with some idea that I already knew. That was such a handicap for me when I was growing up. Everything took longer for me. But now, as you can see, I use that skill every day. Every time I talk to somebody, some random analogy comes into my head and I'm not even trying anymore, because it just goes, boop, oh hey, let me just explain this to you. Maybe that makes more sense. And I've been told that it helps people understand things. So the thing that was my handicap is the thing that God was using to strengthen a skill that I would need later. So what is yours? For David, he had 3 things with him at all times: a sling, a staff, and a harp. I've been using this short teaching a lot because it's amazing, because it blew my mind that it just kind of popped into my head. So when we as fleshly people look at these 3 things, we see, okay, a sling. As a boy, probably would have used it as a toy, knocking over rocks, and he also used it to fight off animals. A stick, he used it to bring the sheep in. A harp, I mean, you got to do something when you're out in the fields, right? So you just play music to amuse yourself, right? That's what we think when we see it. Well, that's what I think when I see these 3 things. But God, when he takes these 3 things, he says, David, I'm going to make you a warrior. I'm going to make you a leader. And I'm going to teach you how to have intimacy with me. So the things that you have in your life may be extraordinarily significant. But ask Moses, he had a stick. God said, what's in your hand? And Moses said, a stick. And God said, cool, with that stick, I'm going to save all of the children of Israel. With a stick. I say that because I don't want you to think that what you have isn't enough, because it's more than enough when God is the one who's using it. So, what's the solution? Well, it's going to take a lot of faith, a lot of courage, and you're going to have to own your stuff. Okay, I don't look like Thor. I want to, but I don't. I can change that. Okay, well, I don't know if I can look like Thor, but like I can change my physical appearance. Okay, so I have a criminal record. That's not the man that I am. That is the boy that I was, but that's not the man that I am. Okay, so I had a hard time in school. When's the last time you had to justify the C's that you got in elementary school? Let's just be real. For those of you, if there's any children in here, get good grades. Okay. But really, owning it, knowing that, hey, this is a part of where I'm at right now, but not letting it control you. Not letting it be your future. Just saying, yeah, okay, this is it right now. What am I going to do to change this going forward? You know, there's a video that went viral on YouTube, or somewhere, I don't know, on the internet. And it was kind of, it looked like a camp counselor situation where there's this guy, he's standing up front, and then there's a line of students who are standing there, and he says, all right, we're going to have a race down to that line over there. And he says, I got $100 for the winner. So he says, but before we do this, we have to find your correct positions. So the guy says, if you have both parents still at home, I want you to take 2 steps forward. And so a bunch of the kids took 2 steps forward. He said, if you've never had to question where your food was going to come from, take 2 steps forward. And a bunch of people stepped forward. And he went through a series of questions like this that showed the difference between people who are what we would consider privileged in terms of society versus those who aren't. And you know, when I saw that line of kids in the back, I realized as I went through all the questions, I was like, I'm definitely not as fast as those guys in the back row, but I am still stuck in that back row. And so part of me was thinking to myself as I watched this video, I was just like, man, this sucks. I was dealt a junk hand. And then I sit there and I'm like, wait a minute. The Bible doesn't say anything about how we start the race. It talks about how we end it. So, if you're feeling like you're the guy starting, or the woman starting in the back, and trying to start this race, and you're like, man, how am I going to do this? It doesn't matter where you start. It only matters how you finish. And here's the other concept. God's version of time, nothing to do with ours. So what we think is winning the race by speed has nothing to do with what God is saying. So I want to encourage you as we close this out. What are the things that are holding you back? What are the things that you're letting stand in the way? As a motorcyclist, former, I guess my bike has been sitting in my yard for years. I miss it. It's very sad. If you're driving fast on a motorcycle and you start looking at like we don't have billboards here, but like you start looking at a store as you drive by, anybody know what's probably going to happen? I promise, if you guys answer, I'm not going to make you stand up and make an awkward. It's okay. Yeah, you're probably going to crash. What are you looking at? What are you fixed on? When you make a turn on a motorcycle, when you're in motorcycle safety class, they tell you look towards your target. Doesn't matter what else is going on, you look to where you're turning to because your body and the bike are going to follow where you're looking. So here's the problem. If your body and your bike follow where you're looking, and you're looking at your past, or you're looking at something on the side that's meant to distract you, you're going to crash right into it. I can assure you of something. Not only because my field, field of expertise, my job, my company, whatever, my work is that I'm an executive coach. And I like to call myself a treasure hunter. And I can assure you, not even with that skill that I have of talking to people and recognizing greatness in people, but just because you're in this room and because God is who He is, I know that there's greatness in every one of you. I don't care where you started. And that's not meant to be mean, like, suck it up and you've got problems. No, I get it. Like, I spent 3 years of my life homeless here in Hawaii with my family because my parents are broke. I told you I've spent a Christmas and a whole bunch of other things in jail. That's what happens in a year. I started in the back. I by no means consider myself ahead of the pack. But I do know that I'm walking towards what it is that God has for me every day. Because I have to. And so what is it that you're supposed to be going for? What is it that's holding you back? And lastly, what's your problem? So I want to pray. And we're going to have a prayer team up here. I'm going to be up here with the prayer team. And if any of you are leaving before middle end of May, I would love to pray for you because this is it. I'm not going to see you because I'm going to be gone for a month. So, that's it. Father, thank you for this night. Thank you that you are a God who heals, that you are a God who loves, that you are a God who would tear down anything that would get in between us and you. I ask right now for favor. I ask that you would pour out a blessing, that you would show yourself favored and as our God. I pray that you would open minds, make people aware of what it is that they are carrying, what it is that's holding them back. Yeah, I pray that you would open doors of healing for it. In Jesus' name.